And now, fast forward 12 years or whatever it is, oh my gosh, 15 years, that's now our biggest strength. And I certainly would not want to be the other way around. So I'm very, very lucky for doing it the hard way. But again, as we always say at Sussex, we do it the right way.
Yep.
And that's an ethos that runs really deep within the business.
Hi, I'm Beth Beesky, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5. And I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Welcome to episode 16 of the Design Dialogues podcast. This week, I am talking with Vanessa Katsanevakis from Sussez Taps. Before we get to the dialogue though, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what is happening at More Time to Design. We have just released some new features, some more advanced scheduling tools, increased capability with our supplier lists, more connectivity across the platform, and also we have updated our whiteboard tickets. We are in the last 3 months of 2023 and now is the time to make sure your systems and processes are in place and your business is running as well as it can be. Why don't you make 2024 the year you go from a flustered interior designer not really sure what's happening in her business to one who is organized and has more time in their day for the things they love to do. I would love to show you how More Time to Design can help you build a better business. And the best way to see how it will do that is to book in a demonstration. We go through all of the features of the platform and how it can help your business. I will pop the link in the show notes where you can book in a demonstration. Also, if you are enjoying the podcast, I would love for you to leave a review. Reviews are one of the best ways for people to find the podcast. If you are unsure of how to leave a review, I will put in the show notes some simple instructions to follow. I really appreciate you taking the time to leave a review. This week on the podcast, we are meeting Vanessa Katsanevakis from Sussez Taps. It is such an interesting conversation that has so many things we can take into our businesses, especially around building strong brand principles and how they allow us freedom in decision making. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Design Dialogues podcast. This week, I am joined by Vanessa Katsanevakis from Sussez Taps. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello, beautiful Beth. How are you?
I'm good. So I love to start all of my dialogues with finding out what can you see out your window today?
Okay, so today I'm in the office. So if there's any background noise, that'll be why. But I can see my team and the sun shining, the trees blowing out the front. We've actually got some olive trees growing that were here pre-existing before we bought the building. And every year we get to do a little bit of a extra virgin olive oil cold press. We get
awesome.
a litre or two, but it's always a bit of a perk. So we love that. And lavender, I've planted lavender and rosemary because I love bees buzzing around. So that's what
a little Mediterranean snippet there.
Influence, definitely.
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, Sussez Taps is such beautiful tapware. But I am quite fascinated by the brand and the business that you have continued on from your father. I would love to know about the company he started and I suppose the evolution of Sussez and the brand.
Yeah. Well, Dad was from the Netherlands, so his name was Nicholas van Putten, and he came by ship when he was 18. He just wanted to leave the Netherlands, and he'd heard great things about Australia. And but before he could leave, his parents said you have to at least have some type of certificate. So he went to work with his uncle and became certified in watchmaking through his uncle's business. So he was probably 19, not 18. But so as soon as he had completed that, he hopped on the ship and came out to Australia. And then from there, he tried various things. He was just so determined to make it in business. And he was very technically minded. So what he loved was making things, the way the Northern Europeans make them, to the utmost, most beautiful quality, always coming first. So he had a few businesses along the way. He actually also had an earring business, sleeper earrings back in the 80s. That's sort of what you would get when you got your ears pierced.
Yeah.
Now it's studs, but he had a great business there, exported it worldwide, ended up selling it. But while that was happening, he stumbled across Sussex as his next venture. And how it began was he just started creating some components for Coroma Dorf, because he had the machinery and the capacity. And before long, he said, no, I'm not going to be the middleman. I'm going to do this for myself. So, he went from a brand new business to, a couple of million sales within a year.
Yeah,
so
wow.
there was just that opportunity there. And he took it, and sometimes life takes us down these journeys, and then now I have I get to run Sussex. It's since Dad passed away 12 years ago. He was very he felt that he was happy to leave it to myself and my husband. So that's been our journey to this point.
Wow. Okay, so I have so many questions that have just come up from that. So your dad obviously was he's obviously a very technically minded person, but he obviously had an amazing business acumen as well. Like he grew and sold several businesses. He had an ability to see where there was an opportunity. And he would have grown up in a time and been in business in a time when, maybe sales and marketing, like there wasn't courses like you can do now and all of that kind of stuff. How much did you learn from him about those kind of things from just being around him? Like he must have been such a wealth of knowledge around things that he most probably didn't have any formal qualifications in, but obviously had like an intrinsic understanding of how it works.
Oh, Beth, yeah, you've just kind of given me goosebumps because you've understood it so well. But he was actually considered silly in school, or he felt that, he was a poor student, and he was sort of told that he would not amount to anything. And thank you for the compliment about the business acumen, but it's almost his passion and perseverance to never give up, because he only really made it when he was almost 50, or in his 40s actually, through the earring business. But he never gave up. Just passion, determination, and never wavering on those core values that you have. I think that's the only way to really get there in the end. And for me, so my dad didn't even believe in marketing. He would be like, what is this marketing? If you make a good product, it will sell itself. So I think we didn't even have a website for half of the lifespan of the business. That's where I was able to add my input, because I'm not a manufacturer at heart. I'm not at all technical, but that's where I was able to say, Dad, things are changing. We really do need a website. And so I feel like I've been able to, I love the arts and fashion and looking outside of, manufacturing a product outside of our industry as such. I love looking outside for inspiration. So that's where I've been able to bring the brand to life and to really celebrate the richness that was in that brand that we have been hiding behind the product for so long.
Oh, that's awesome. Gosh, he must have just been such a fountain of knowledge. Really kind of awesome to have that legacy flow through into the brand and to the business. So awesome. So And this really, I mean, this is so clear now. Like, if anyone who has looked through the Sussez website will know that you have an amazing sense of brand purpose and where you're going and what you stand for and the values of the brand and the business. How did you go about forming that? So one of the ones that I'd love to kind of, I suppose, touch on the most is the decision to manufacture in Australia. So how, obviously there must be so much that goes into that, you know, that we are constantly hearing about how manufacturing in Australia just doesn't exist anymore. It's so expensive and all of that kind of stuff. How do you as a business, is it just so much of your core value that you would never not manufacture in Australia? Or is it that, like, how does that work in your company?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's just, it would just not be an option for us to go offshore.
Yeah.
And I can give you an example during the GFC, so 2008-09, there were so many tapware companies that were made here.
Yeah.
Like, it was fantastic. And at that point, there was that pivotal point where there was no value in being Australian made. It just wasn't perceived by the market as important.
Yeah.
Things were getting pumped out of, you know, overseas, and a lot of companies unfortunately did go offshore. There are still a couple here that are doing great. One in Victoria, which we're all about supporting manufacturing. So, and one in Adelaide that we know of that are doing things locally. But my dad said, you know, we weren't doing great at that time. It was, you know, we really had to assess what were we going to do, because it was a couple of quite some hard times, and living off the fat, so to speak. And Dad said, no, if we can't make it here, it's you know, it's just not going to happen anywhere else. So it was a do or die. And, you know, again, when you're under that situation, you will find a way. You can try 100 times, you can fail 99, but that one time will get you through, and you will find a way. And just staying true to our values. Again, it does fall back on that. That's and now fast forward 12 years or whatever it is, oh my gosh, 15 years, that's now our biggest strength. And I certainly would not want to be the other way around. So I'm very, very lucky for doing it the hard way. But again, as we always say at Sussex, we do it the right way.
Yeah.
And that's an ethos that runs really deep within the business.
Yeah. And I love that, because when you have that, you know, that thinking, and as you said, it runs deep through the business, it actually makes decisions that might be hard actually really simple, because it's like, it's just so clear the path that you're on that everything else kind of doesn't matter. That's awesome. And how other ways do you see that permeate through the business, like those really strong fundamental ethoses that you have through the company? So I know another one is your, like, the environmental and like that side of the business as well, which in manufacturing is quite, you know, it's a big topic kind of thing. So how do you kind of navigate other things in the business, and when it comes to those strong ethos?
Yes, yeah, I love that point, Beth. It does come through sustainability as well, and which I'll explain in a minute. But also, you've just prompted me to think that we're not about fast fashion either. For example, we don't produce a new collection every 9 months. Yeah. But what we do is the collections that have been out for 10 or 20 years, we are continuously refining them to make them the best possible version of themselves. So you've got, that's another part of our ethos of just making it timeless, making it functional, and making it beautiful, and making it to last. So that all ties in, as well as sustainability. And when I think about sustainability for our business, I think about sustainability as the whole picture. How am I going to have a sustainable business in 20 years' time? So it's a holistic view, and it's such a buzzword, and I almost don't like the word sustainability. That's why on our website we've called it responsibility. What we're responsible for, we're responsible for keeping it local. We're responsible for producing the best possible product. We're responsible for our staff. We're responsible for our environmental impact. So what we've been doing for many years, vertical integration. And what that means is everything that we can possibly do in-house, we do in-house.
Yeah.
And what that allows us is to keep track on rejects and pull things in quickly without having to send things to the bin. We recycle all our waste product. We are able to do things in-house, like upgrade our energy and our machinery, and put solar panels across all our roofs, across the 4 sites that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And we're continuously monitoring what can we do better? How can we keep being responsible? Because I want to be in business for many, many years, and by doing it, by giving everything that I can today.
Yeah.
And there's always more to learn, and I'm early in my journey. I still feel like I'm maybe a teenager in business. I've been in the business since I was 18. I'm 40 now, so solid 20 odd years. But I'm still very much learning, and almost a coming of age, for myself as well in business, and working out how can I add value, what sort of impact do I want to leave, and what's my legacy going to be now?
Yeah.
So I've probably totally gone off the topic.
No, not at all. No, it was great. Because it actually kind of loops back into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, because so I think your website is really amazing for a tapware company. Like, it's totally different, and it is very clear that you like these brand ethos that you have. They're not just something that kind of sits to the side. Like, it is very clear that they run deep through the business. How did you go through, and I suppose the reason why I'm interested in this is because I think when you really understand a brand, that's when that beautiful connection between brand and user, like that, that's when it happens. How did you go about working out how to tell that story and how to make it clear that these key things are not just kind of things off to the side that we sometimes mention when we think it might help, but they are actually kind of like the foundation stones that our business are built on? How did you go through that process?
Sometimes we can take things for granted about ourselves, or things that we've been doing for years that we just take as second nature, but somebody else would say, wow, that's actually amazing.
Yeah.
I was doing a tour on Friday and the other day, and I skipped over a couple of things, and someone from my team said, oh, we also do this, and I was explaining something. I'm like, oh yeah, I take that. I don't even explain that. It turned out to be one of the most interesting things.
Yeah.
So it's about so for me, how I achieved that was I always like to work with the best. But I did get in a specialist that was able to come in and, from an outside point of view, see all those special little golden nuggets, and then boil it down to a couple of key messages, because we're trying not to overcomplicate things. And then, if you can refine it down to the one line, like for us, it's just making it right, and everything revolves around that. So it was about, getting that outside point of view to really refine it. And then we can delve into that as a subtopic. But I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how we went about it, Beth.
Yeah. And so I suppose getting really clear on, like, I really love that kind of idea of having someone external come in and almost reflect a mirror back up to you to kind of help you see the bits that you do take for granted. I think that's really helpful, because I think so often when you're working in your own business, you're so close to it that you can't see it. So seeing that, I think, is awesome. And I think as well, like, I think the idea of honing all of the messages that you have down to one, and I loved how you say, like, do it right, like just do it once, do it right, and it does tie back to that sense of your product is a timeless product. It's not, the fast fashion version of renovation. You spend a little more and it's going to last a lot longer. I think that really kind of resonates with the whole product. So there's not a disconnect between kind of what your marketing's saying and then actually what the product does, which I think so often can happen. It's like you've got all the fuss, but you don't have the stuff to back it up. And then I suppose the other part of that I would love to kind of understand a bit is when you are going through this process of, creating the website and putting all of this branding material together, how do you make sure that the product does back up what you're saying? So you obviously have such, a long history of manufacturing and all of that kind of stuff. And you touched on before about how you go back and you look at things and you refine the same collections. But how do you make sure those products are what the website is and the branding is saying?
Yeah, the business is always changing. So things can, so you've got to look back on something and say, okay, we now have to update our processes on this. But I don't know if I can really speak to that, because we've built the business the opposite way around, where we built the product to be steadfast and then marketed it. So
and I think that's most probably a real testament to the quality of business that you have, because I think in these days, like our modern days, marketing and sales is such a big part of it, kind of thing. And the manufacturing and the product itself can sometimes be secondary. And so I think the fact that you have got the business, you've had the product, and it's almost like you were saying, like, you needed to shine a light on what you already knew was really good. So, you had that ability to do that, which I think is awesome.
So challenges always pop up, like with obviously COVID, and these different phases that we go through just shake things up a bit, and you're like, oh, we've got a hole here, so we've got to patch that up and sort that section of the business out, and that's just life, isn't it? It's just an evolving wheel. So we definitely don't have it under control, and often you even friends that have much bigger businesses than ours that you'd look at and you'd think they've surely got everything under control. It's not the way. It's not the way, guys.
It's never the way.
We're all on that same wheel of, this area is now sorted, then there's another patch that needs your attention, and that's just the fun of business, right? We just go with the challenges.
Exactly. And something actually you just mentioned, COVID, big kind of, thing we all went through. How did the fact that you manufacture onshore, how did that mean your COVID played out? Was it better for you? Did you still have the problems of, supply issues? Or was it one of the times when you like, our decisions 10, 20 years ago are now paying off here for us now?
It was a bit of both. We still did experience some challenges in terms of our raw material that comes from the earth, which comes from different countries, which is brass. And so we did have delays in that when things weren't being shipped or things had gone out locally. Having to bring in that raw material was a big problem for us. But as soon as it was here, we could make the product. But we were very fortunate that we were deemed essential. Melbourne had some of the toughest lockdowns in the world. So it was such a blessing that we were open, and coming to work was just a highlight for everybody, just to connect and be together. And I'd say it was definitely the most disruptive time, even though we've been through, tough times in the past. It was the most disruptive time, at a time when we were also launching our Lux PVD, which is a state-of-the-art facility for coating.
Yeah.
So we're trying to launch that and get that off the ground. And look, standing here today, we did it, like many, it wasn't easy, but here we are, and we are stronger for it. So you got to look at these things as a blessing, and we had a great team around us. So that's what got us through.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, let's talk about the product, because it's beautiful. Tell me a little bit about how you go about the kind of making sure that something is timeless, but also that you are still staying relevant, which is, always a bit of a juggle. How does that process work for Sussex?
Yeah, maybe we're a bit guilty of not being great at that.
It's one of those things that you're working on.
But I think due to the sort of the style that the business started, which was really geometric and very clean lines for its time, we thought when we were making these products, would they sell, wouldn't they sell? But they certainly did. and they still are. They're just that product that work in so many different environments. So for us, we choose not to go down certain styles, and just keep a super really clean, succinct design ethos for our business. And again, I believe in keeping a niche. I can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
So that's not something I'm seeking to do. And that's where we keep our design super tight, and less is more for us.
Yeah.
So just sticking to the origins, because, you know, just like beautiful jewelry like Cartier relaunched things from the 1950s, and are desirable again. You know, our collections have been around 20 odd years and are still some of our top sellers. So again, things done right.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned just then when we were talking about COVID about how you were introducing new like the finishing techniques. How, you know, I suppose going back to what we were talking about before about the strong ethos that you have that run through your business. How do you, because, you know, technology in terms of like metal finishes and all that, I'm sure has come a long, long way in the time the business has been around. How do you go about those kind of decisions in terms of, and there is an element of on-trend finishes as well, not just about the style of tap and the design of the tap, but the finish. How do you go about making those kind of decisions? Because I'm guessing there's quite a big investment in being able to apply those finishes and going down that path. How does that come into your thinking?
Yeah, it totally is. You know, I think the consumer now is so well educated.
Yeah.
You know, so many renovation shows on the TV that everybody's feeling quite empowered or knowledgeable to some degree about what's available to them, whereas 10 years ago that wasn't the case. So there is that demand for different finishes, and we offer, I think, about around the 30 mark of various finishes. So for example, you've got your living finishes, you've got your electroplated finishes, but we are transitioning to that PVD finish, which is again about longevity. It's a lot more durable and wearable than electroplated, which was the traditional way taps were done. For example, the taps at my mum's place were gold plated, and but electroplating means they are literally dipped in a solution of 24 karat gold plating. So they've worn off after 10, 15 years, that gold wears off, whereas PVD will not do that. So trying to make them as durable as they can be, scratch resistant as possible. And it's actually aerospace technology. It's insane. And for example, my iPhone's coated with by a PVD machine. So it's a common coating process. Now come into architectural products. So
and I suppose once again, like we were saying, it actually was most probably an easy decision for the business because it, you know, it's more like it adds more longevity to the product. So it's so easily kind of tying back to those business foundations that you're built on, kind of thing. So once again, I suppose it just highlights the point. If you have those strong business foundations, then tough decisions can be made very easy.
That's right. Which is almost painful because we have to do this now.
There's no way of kind of getting out of it.
No.
And you've obviously had this business in your life. Like you were saying, you've been in the business since you were 18, but it's obviously been part of your life since you were born. What are some of your favorite parts of the business? Like, what do you love about Sussez Taps?
It's so funny, Beth. Whenever my dad used to get a new machine, you know, he'd invest in a new machinery, whether it's a couple of $100,000 or more, and then we'd get dressed up, and on a Saturday we'd come to the factory, and my mum would take a photo of us with the machine. So it's definitely you know, a part of our life growing up in a family business, and I just loved hearing what Dad would talk about when he'd come home, and you know, he'd say, I was a very shy kid and teenager, and he'd say, he'd say to me, one day you can run the business. And I just didn't understand like on what planet he was on even thinking that. Like it was just so bizarre to me that he thought that of me. But now it's just, yeah, it just really makes me happy when I remember that. But yeah, it is. It's like another baby, and now I've got 4 kids in the business. It's literally like another child. It's complains. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes you love it. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
All the joys. So
Yeah.
it's very much a part of my life and a part of who I am as well. So I'm just thrilled that I can continue manufacturing, and I do realize that it's a special industry to be a part of, and I'm just happy that I've been able to find my place, because for some time it did take me a bit of time after Dad passed away to work out how I was going to add value, because it was not a business I had started, but obviously his legacy, I was not going to let it go. So
yeah. Something else I'd love to get your take on, because when we think of manufacturing, we think of it being a male-dominated industry. And how have you found that as a woman working in the industry, and a woman that's kind of the head of the company? How have you found that? How have you navigated that?
For me, it's never been a something that's ever provided any type of roadblock.
Yeah.
Beth. So I've got the most incredible team around me. My husband's so super supportive of me, and he highly values and approaches a female. We've got perhaps maybe a more softer approach, or a more heart-centered. I certainly come from that space. So when I make decisions, I'm very lucky. I've got the most amazing team around me, men and women that are super supportive and can see the value in a softer angle or a different angle.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That might be traditionally the case in a manufacturing business. So it's been an advantage for me.
Yeah.
And the business, and I think it was a perfect time for me to come in and add that value at that time, which now, as I mature, I can recognize and say, yes, you did good, girl.
I love that. And I think it's so refreshing to hear stories of women in what we would traditionally think of male-dominated industries, that it isn't hard. There hasn't been roadblocks. There hasn't been, there's always bad days at the office, but where it hasn't been this massive thing that you've got to get through, because I think sometimes, I know in our industry, like interior designers, we're mostly female, but you go onto a building site and it can be a very male-dominated work environment, and it's not always the most pleasant experience. And so I think the more we hear about stories of women doing roles in male-dominated industries that are positive, I think is really great. And I think the more we hear it, the better it is. So tell me, what are a couple of things I should be looking out for that are kind of coming in the works in new designs and maybe innovations into tapware?
Yeah, there's some great things coming through, Beth, in terms of the focus on the health of the product, because I guess we can all take products that we buy for granted, like what goes into the metals of your tap, right? Your water is running through that, and you are drinking that every single day, and you're giving that to your children. So there's going to be some great improvements coming through regulatory bodies on that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm personally working on focusing on the health of the water itself.
And I think that's great, because I see that more and more with clients. Like, they're a bit more aware of these things, and they're wanting more, and they're kind of probing around water filtration and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think that's really exciting, because I don't think it's an area that we've necessarily had that much advancement in or change. Like, we've all had the little filter tap on the side of the sink. And so, that's really exciting to hear that that's coming along. Is that side of that, like R&D, research and development, is that something that you love to get involved in?
I do, yes. And I'm passionate about that.
So tell me, what are you looking forward to in your business in the next 12 months?
In the next 12 months, I'm looking forward to a fantastic sales manager joining my team. I'm putting it out there to the universe. Right.
Yeah.
And also, we're just developing the floor plan for the factory next door. So we're moving half of our facility here next door. So that's exciting, as well as some new product that I'm hoping to launch in 2024. And events and tours, factory tours. We love hosting industry for architects, interior designers. We love hosting all of that, as well as doing some CPD points through the Australian Institute of Architects.
Yeah.
So lots of exciting things happening.
Tell me a little bit, I'm just going to press you here. Tell me a little bit about a factory tour. What could a designer expect to see if they do a factory tour with you?
Yeah, look, we love opening up our doors and having people through from the industry.
Yeah.
So we host factory tours across 2 of our sites. And you can come through and have a look at everything we do, from the way a raw bar comes in, the way it's polished, or made on the machine, then polished, and goes through step by step to the finished product. So we love showing people through, and they're fascinated by seeing how much truly goes into making a product.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to take for granted when it's all shiny and comes out of a box. So much behind the scenes happens, and we offer those. We're going to be launching that on our website, where you can register to attend one. So I'm hoping to have that up and working on the website in the next coming months. Otherwise, you can reach out to our lovely team to organise. If you've got a group of 8 or more, often we have groups come through, which is fantastic. But yeah, that's how we love to welcome students as well through. So
I think that's so awesome that you offer that. I think it really shows the commitment that Sussex has to the industry, because it is a two-way relationship. So I think that's awesome. And tell me, how can our community reach out and find more about what Sussex does?
Well, Beth, I guess the usual, we've got Instagram, and we've also got newsletters that we send out every 6 weeks or so.
Yep.
And you can register for that on our website. Otherwise, our Instagram, Sussez Taps. That's where usually all our up-to-date, and often I'll do little videos on finishes, beautiful spread of our finishes that are about to go out to somebody. So that's the best way, Beth.
Awesome. We will link to all of that in our show notes. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I have really enjoyed this chat, and as I said, I was really excited to have it, and I'm so glad we have. So thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Beth. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
I really enjoyed that chat with Vanessa. So many points stood out to me as key takeaways, but one of the main ones was about those strong principles that they have in the business, and how they run so deep that decision making is just so straightforward, and things that might be a difficult decision due to financial restraints or other factors, just, you don't need to waste time on them. You don't need to really think about them. They are just, it's such a clear yes or no. And I think for a brand, that is so important, because it really helps your customers know straight away what you are, what you stand for, and whether or not they want to work with you. And as interior designers, I think that is such an important thing to be clear about. I think being clear on that and making sure that is clear throughout all of your messaging, it makes you stand out from your competition, and it gives your potential clients just that really clear picture of who you are and what you stand for. So I think if you haven't had a look at the Sussez Taps website, I encourage you to go and do it. It is just a real masterclass in messaging around a brand and messaging what the company stands for. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Design Dialogues podcast, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to this Design Dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next Design Dialogue.